It's the end of July, so it's going to be a Mathewson's auction. These are held over 3 days. They have 900 lots in total, and just under 500 of those are vehicles. Each day they do a live stream, but that's nearly 8 hours long. So I thought I'd compact it down and show you some of the highlights of the classic cars they had for sale over day one. And just before I kick off, just so everybody understands what I've done, I'm not showing you every single car because there's a lot of repeats. There's obviously a lot of things like MGs and Porsches and fast forwards. So I'm just trying to put together a mix of what I thought was some of the highlights. So let's get going. Lot 7 kicks us off. I'm doing these in numerical order. And this is a 1987 Renault 5 GT Turbo. Really sought after car of its day. This one has seen better days. Obviously, it's a bit of a project. It's been off the road at least 20 years. It's done about 104,000 miles. Good news is it comes with quite a group of spares. There's a couple of doors inside and some boxes of other parts. It looks like it's got some extra louvers on the front bonnet, I think. I'm sure the Renault 5 experts will tell me. Now, this one was guided £7,000 to £9,000 and it got to 5,750, which is a provisional bid. They'll obviously speak to the seller, see whether they'll accept it or whether there's some post-auction negotiation. We've got another hot hatch at lot 20, and that is a 1986 Peugeot 205 GTi 1.6. And that was a bit of a barn find, as you can see. Apparently it's been off the road since 2004. It did run sort of on a squirt of easy start, apparently. The interior was pretty tired. It reflected the 150,000 miles this car had done. There was no history with the car at all, just the V5. Now, guided at £1,500 to £2,500, this did finish quite strongly and sold for £3,000. And another hot hatch at lot 24, Volkswagen Golf GTi from 1991. Now, this is the Mark II big bumper, and this one, it did look a little bit tired to me. The plastics were a bit grey. Had been owned for 18 years by the current owners. It's done 85,000 miles. 2 previous owners had a little bit of welding over the years. The last MOT did mention a bit of corrosion. It was guided at £9,000 to £10,000 and unfortunately only made £7,000, so it was very provisional. I think that'll be a struggle if that's going to be a sale. Yeah. Got a couple of Ford Sierra Sapphire Cosworths for you next. First one's 1990s and it's one of the first 4x4 editions. This one is the tuned version. The next one we're going to show you is very standard. This one had a bigger turbo, bigger injectors, uprated suspension, etc, etc. A long list of modifications for this car. It had the MOT certificates with it back to the mid-90s, showing just 67,000 miles, but of course it's, you know, there can be some grey area with that, who knows. And it's been owned by the current owner 15 years, which I always think is a good sign. This one guided £20,000 to £25,000, but sadly only made 18,250 during bidding. Fairly close to the bottom estimate, so I think there's a fair chance that that provisional bid will turn into a sale. And the other Ford Sierra Cosworth is this 1987 model, so it would be back in the 2-wheel drive days. This one was sold by Mathewson's around about 3 years ago, apparently, to a collector. It's only done 46,000 miles. It's completely unmolested. The only thing at the moment, it's not a runner. It needs a fuel pump. It does also need the bonnet painting, so it's not perfect. But watching the video, it all looked a really nice, sort of genuine car. It was guided at 39 to 40,000, which I'd imagine is probably the owner hoping to get the money back. Unfortunately, it only got to 29,750, so that was very provisional. I'd be surprised if that actually turns into a deal because of that gap to what the vendor expected. Now, this is a lovely old bus, isn't it? This lovely 1978 Ford Granada 2.8 GL. So that's obviously got the V6 engine being the 2.8. I assume that's probably the Cologne engine as against the Essex one. This one's done, or showing, just 45,000 miles. It does need a good under bonnet detail. That side of it did let it down, but externally it looked really nice. And mechanically, it had been recommissioned at a cost of around about £6,000. So someone has certainly invested in it. Got a little bit of corrosion going on the rear arches, but nothing too horrible. Estimated at £7,000 to £9,000, and it came in just at the top end of that, and it sold for £8,900. Now this one maybe a little bit special. Lot 73 was a 1974 Ford Escort 1100 base model, and being a 74, that's pretty much the end of Mark 1 production. This was purchased by the current owner 27 years ago when he was just 17, and unfortunately, due to illness, he's never been able to drive it, so it's come up for sale. It's done just 17,000 miles. It is showing a few bits of sort of corrosion out on the paintwork, but overall this car is going to be solid because it had Z-Bark protection from brand new. So it does start and run. It obviously needs a bit of TLC and sort of freshening up and probably recommissioning, but what a great start point. This one guided at 15 to 16,000. Unfortunately, it only made 13,100. So it was very provisional, and the thought on the podium was that this car would be represented at the next auction. Now we've got a couple of really nice BMWs coming up for you if you like the classic ones. This one, 1980 BMW 316, so that was the E21 shape. This one is showing just 53,000 miles, and it looked absolutely glorious. Don't recall that colour back in the day, but it did seem to really suit it. This was pulled out of a garage where it had been sitting since 2017. Starts and runs, does need the brakes and sort of running gear going through, but otherwise it's sort of reasonably ready to go. It apparently has not been painted, that's original factory paintwork. It just looked a really nice car. Guided, I thought, very sensibly at 2,900 to 3,900, and it smashed through that, as I think probably most of you expect, and that sold for 7,900. And the other BMW, Lot 86, which was this 1972 BMW 2000 Touring, I think was even nicer. This one, again, it's been pulled out of a garage where it's been since 2017. It's only had 2 previous owners. Does run, but brakes need attention, so you need to go through the running gear on this one. This one's showing just 43,000 miles, and again was, I thought, estimated very sensibly at £7,500 to £9,500, and yep, it smashed through those. Got to 13,000 even 400, and it was sold. On to lot 112, which was this really nice 1988 Ford Fiesta XR2. Wasn't perfect, but a very usable classic, I think. Came with an MOT through to Jan 2026, so it's ready to go. Did have some minor paint issues which you may or may not want to address. We're showing 78,000 miles. It starts, runs, drives. Obviously, he's got an MOT. In the video, it showed the top end they thought was a little bit noisy, and the other thing is those yellow hoses. What were you thinking? They look awful. You know, put it back to standard, make it look nice. It's got the RS spec wheels instead of the original pepper pots, which I think I prefer the pepper pots. This one was on its second lap with Mathewson's back in June. It was estimated at 9 to 10 and only got to 7,300. And it's often the case, second time round they don't do quite so well, but this bucked the trend. It got to 8,750 and was sold. On to lot 114, and that was a 1971 Volkswagen Beetle 1300. So the last of the flat windscreens and smaller rear lights, and this looked a really tidy original car. And slightly interesting history, it was actually an import from all places, the Isle of Man. So I don't suppose you can rack up too many miles going around the island there. 32,000 miles this one was showing. Apparently an awful lot of money had been spent with a VW specialist to get this sort of restored and, you know, recommissioned up and running. It was a very good runner apparently, you sounded it in the videos. MOT through to April 26, despite the fact it's exempt, which I always think is a good move. It gives like a third-party inspection of your car. And estimate-wise, £5,000 to £6,000. And yep, it did that easily. It got to £6,800 and was sold. I do like a Porsche 944, and this 1989 example is no exception. Unfortunately, this one does need a little bit of love. Its last MOT expired in 2008. It has subsequently had a £2,000 engine service done with all the belts and everything else, and it had a stainless steel exhaust put on it. So it almost gets the impression it's a bit of an unfinished project. Bodily wise, it looked reasonably solid in the video. It does need paint. It looks pretty rough around the outside, but you know, as a starter classic, it was guided with no reserve, and it went to just £1,600. So I reckon if you can do a lot of the mechanical work yourself, you could have yourself a cheap Porsche there. Now, if you wanted to get yourself on bangers and cash, you needed to buy lot 122, because this is one that they're going to feature in the program. It's a 1985 Opel Manta GT, not GTE. And this had a little bit of story about it. Apparently, it was somebody that owned a newspaper shop and bought it for themselves as a retirement present. It stood for at least 20 years. They couldn't bring themselves to sell it, and it's now obviously up for sale. And it's got two previous owners, and one is the son of the original owner, so it's sort of only one really, and showing just 43,000 miles. Obviously, it's the barn find style dust that people seem to go for. And this one was guided, I thought, was a very sensible £2,500 to £3,500. It eventually hammered away for £10,250. So that was a good seller, that one, and look forward to seeing that on the programme. Now, I'm sure all the Mark 1 Escort Rally boys will get a little moist at the sight of this one. It's a replica of the 1974 RAC Rally entry. 2 litre Z-Tech engine on throttle bodies, Ford Type 9 gearbox, all the right bits on it. It's got the bubble arches on it, looks absolutely great. This one was actually a 1972 car and was originally an 1100L, and that's the only problem I've got with this car, is that's what it's still registered at. And we all know that DVLA are getting a little bit more intrigued with cars that aren't quite as they came out of the factory, and I think the bidding on this reflects that. It had entry in the June auction. It was estimated at 17.5 to 20,000, got to 14.5, had the same estimate this time round, and it only got to 13.5 and remained unsold. So I think if you got that correctly registered with all the, you know, engine size right and everything, I think it might attract a better audience. Now, Lot 136 will be a familiar car to you if you're a regular watcher of the programme, particularly the restoring classics element. This 1971 Citroen DS was one looked after by the Restoring Classic team, so you know it's going to have a mountain of money spent on it. This was back in October 23. It was more of a refresh, recommission than a restoration. They think when they looked at it on the video for this auction, it did need a bit of a service to get it maybe running a little bit better. Mileometers showing 40,000 miles. As you can see in the picture, it's an import because it's a left-hand drive. Now, this one was up for an estimate of £15,000 to £17,000. Unfortunately, it only reached £13,000, which was very provisional. It's a bit of a gap to what the actual vendor wants, so may go through, who knows. Now, Lot 142, I thought was a proper bargain. 1985 Lotus Eclat, so it's the sort of coupe version of the Elite, and I thought this was a really tidy looking car. The bodywork looked straight, the wheels looked pretty nice. Interior was that sort of light beige colour, so it could do with a bit of a sort of clean up, but apart from that, it did look a really tidy thing. And for any of you that watched our video of that massive 200 car buy and find over near the Welsh border, there was one of these there which hadn't been on the road for some time, and I think got to somewhere around £6,000. And this one, up and basically ready to go, got MOT to June 26. It went for 5,400, and I thought that was a bit of a bargain. Now, for me, Lot 172 was a bit of a shocker. 1976 Ford Escort RS2000 with the droop snoot front. It's upgraded with the Z-Tech engine on throttle bodies. It's got 5-speed box, the Type 9. Ran sweet as a nut, and the body was to die for. It was, you see the green colour on top, it was just as nice underneath. Everything was beautifully painted. It was really, really nice in the video, this one. It's got those slightly wider RS 4-spoke wheels. I thought, fantastic. It was guided to 39 to 40,000, and the bidding on it was almost painful. Paul managed to beat one bid out of it for £30,000, and that was it. There was no other interest. Is this just a sign that, you know, that fast forward bubble is not, I wouldn't say it's burst, I think it's maybe gently deflating. Now, this Lancia was a real survivor. Lot 185 is a 1979 Beta Spyder 2000. I think these are really pretty little cars, actually. This one, it wasn't a big money. It did need the paint doing, little bits of metalwork here and there, nothing too horrendous. It looked like it held its own over the years. It did start and run. That rear quarter roof needed replacing. It was absolutely rotten. The interior looked quite salvable in the video, and it showed just 90,000 miles, which for, you know, a nearly 50-year-old car is not bad. Estimate wise, I thought it was very sensible, £2,500 to £3,500. It did reach £2,000, so short of that lower estimate, but I reckon that's close enough possibly to be able to do a deal on that one. Now this one's something you don't see every day nowadays. Lot 224 is this 96 Volvo 850R, but this one's an auto, and I think maybe the manual's a bit more sought after, but not 100% sure on that one. This one's actually a Japanese import. It's done 128,000 miles. It's got an MOT until literally the day after the auction, so that's sort of okay, isn't it? Apparently it runs and drives well. It was generally pretty tidy. The walk around video looked quite good. There was a box full of spares in the boot, which is always a nice add-on. Guided £7,000 to £9,000. It fell short of that during the bidding. It got to 5,750, but interestingly on the Mathewson's website they have it showing a current bid of 6,000, so I'm wondering if that is where a deal has been done on this one. Now lot 250 was the most expensive car of the day, 1967 Aston Martin DB6, and this one has a manual gearbox, which I think is more sought after in these cases. This one was actually sold by Mathewson's 2 or 3 years ago, they think for around about £210,000. It is a very nice car. It was apparently restored by a previous owner. It just looked really good, and the current owner is only selling it because he's actually bought an auto version. Now this was up for a guide of 190 to 220,000, and it got to 190,000, so I thought we're on, but they then said it was provisional, which I was a bit surprised by because it's at least in the range, but hey, I would assume there is going to be some kind of deal done on that, but time will tell. Now I thought this Ford Fiesta RS 1800 was a really good buy actually. It's from 1995, so this is the follow-on from the RS Turbo, which is obviously the one that seems to have a little bit more of interest towards it. But this was really tidy. It was restored between 2009 and 2014. It's then been dry stored and hardly used. It's done 3,000 miles since then in, what, 11 years. It just looked great all the way round. Apparently the paintwork just got the odd dink in it here and there if you want to be really picky, but otherwise a really nice car. It was guided at £8,000 to £9,000, and it hit the bottom estimate, hit £8,000 and was sold. Now with this one you could be king or queen of the Festival of the Unexceptional, couldn't you? Lot 280 1979 Mitsubishi Colt 1400. Now I can remember these back in the day, but blimey, I can't remember the last time I saw one, and what a striking colour as well. There were no keys from this one. There was no V5 from a deceased estate, sadly. It did need recommissioning, but otherwise it looked great. The engine was free apparently, and it was only showing 37,000 miles, and looking at the condition, that looks about right. Estimate wise, £2,500 to £3,500. Absolutely smashed it. It sold for £8,000. Who doesn't like an Audi Quattro? This is one of the later ones with the big lights and so on. Lot 282 from 1984. This one was really nice. It's been in long-term ownership, 27 years. It does apparently, it says it needs attention. I think that was possibly overstating it. There were a few little problems. The fuel gauge apparently was a bit erratic. The sunroof hadn't been opened for a number of years. The engine had been overhauled though with a new turbo, and it got a current MOT. So I think that possibly was not a bad little buy, and certainly the bidders thought that as well. Estimated at 19,500 to 22,500, it actually sold for 26,500. So somebody was very keen to own that one. Now lot 284 is something you've probably not seen before. It's described as a 1969 Sachsenring, and for those who don't know what Sachsenring is, it's a motor racing circuit in Germany, but as you can probably recognise, it is effectively a Trabant. And interestingly also in the description, Mathewson's seemed to distance themselves from that naming of it, saying that was what the vendor had told them it was called. But it does look a bit like, to me, like the RS Cosworth of Trabant. Came to the UK in 1991. Of course, these have got the 600cc little two-stroke engine in it. It's had a disc brake conversion, Apparently it's never been welded, it's got upgraded suspension, so little racy number, quite a fun little thing really. Estimate wise it was up to £2,000 to £3,000 and it smashed through that. Went for £5,100 in the end. Another rare beast in this modern day, Lot 286, this 1978 Datsun 260Z 2+2. This one comes from long-term ownership, around 30 years I think it was, and it didn't look too bad to be honest with you. It was a non-runner, got no brakes either, it didn't go and it didn't stop. The interior actually looked pretty good as well. The rear arches weren't that great, but wouldn't be surprised after this sort of age. Again, it's nearly 50 years old. Estimate wise it was up to £3,000 to £4,000 and it actually sold under the hammer for £5,600, so that one did pretty well. Now the last one I'm going to look at is Lot 294, and it's the 1980 Triumph TR8 convertible, and this is an original TR8. It was an American import, came from Texas, so dry state, so should be pretty good, but of course it is left-hand drive. Came over to the UK in 1992. Obviously it's got that Rover V8 engine up front, which apparently has been rebuilt. Stainless exhaust, you know, it ran nice, the roof was pretty good. I thought this was a bit of a bargain, guided at just £3,000 to £4,000. Bidders thought that as well. They took it all the way up to £6,000 before it was sold. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that brief look through some of the highlights of Mathewson's Day 1 in July 2025. I thought there were some great buys there. Also, some stuff did definitely feel or fall short of what we expected to see. Obviously, if you've enjoyed that, please give that like button and subscribe button a tickle, because you don't want to miss out on Day 2 and Day 3, which will be coming up shortly. Don't call me shortly.